Welcome back to Total Freedom Radio with Rina Lynn, the show that's raising the bar of knowledge, healing hurting people, and spiritual warfare. Join us also on YouTube, Rumble, and Brighteon. We are now daily. We went from once a week to daily shows, and it is syndicated around the world in 169 countries. The radio show owner said it is being watched and people are enjoying it, so you're in great company. And um, join me some ask excuse me Email me at askrinalyn@yahoo.com. Share your story with me, and I'll have you on the radio program. We'll talk about it. Maybe offer me some of your story, maybe your job for my my book series. I am talking too fast and talking all over myself. Book 6 is about to come out. Book 1 is a safe haven where we meet our characters and get a little bit of knowledge of who they are. The Hourglass Flips starts the story in earnest where one of their own is missing and they have a very short time to find her. Book 3 is Ranch Haven, where the owner of the ranch gathers people to offer them a safe place to live, to heal, and to hide from the enemy. Book 4 is God's Men. They begin to come out of the woodwork to protect their women and children and their way of life. Book 5 is The Intriguing Truth, where the enemy starts pushing back and all of their secrets begin to come out. They thought they've had hidden from everybody. And in book 6, the gloves come off. Is there any safe haven anywhere? All right, tonight we are back with my friend David Heavener from the Last Evangelist, the TV series that he's created. He now has episode 1 and 2 out, and episode 3 comes out very shortly. And David, I am so excited to have you back to Total Freedom Radio. Welcome once again.
Thank you, Rena. Good to be back with you and your wonderful, wonderful God-filled audience.
David, I think my audience might have the same question that many do and that I do is you had a career that started out in Hollywood. But I happen to know that you're from a Christian family, a very deeply man of faith. So, what led you to to a career in filmmaking, in all the endeavors that you do that started out in Hollywood?
That's a good question. I started as a songwriter when I was in my teens and wrote songs into my mid 20s. That was in the late 70s and 80s. I wrote, I had some country hits, top 10 records in Nashville. And then I went to Los Angeles to try to get my music in movies. They thought I was an actor, so I did a bad impersonation of Clint Eastwood and I got the lead role. And some 55 movies later, I've written, directed, starred, and produced with Academy Award winners like Tony Curtis, Martin Landau, Ernest Borgnine. Um, and the question is, why me? Why a guy that had no connections at that time, no training, no money? But why me? Why make all those movies and do what I did? Well, the religious judgmental community would say, why did you do that? That's not something Jesus would do. But I believe the truth seekers would say, oh, I know why you did it. God was preparing you for the higher calling of Last Evangelist. So I made a lot of movies that were R-rated, meaning a lot of action. There was, some sexual stuff going on, just the normal stuff you watch in movies. But and you're right. I came from a faith-based family, a little on the dysfunctional side, but we went to church. I was trying to work out my salvation during all this time, and this is why I do what I do. I try to keep people from falling into the holes that I fell into. You have all these people out there with talent that God's given them, but what happens? The church doesn't really nurture that, except for get on stage and play some music for us. They don't really nurture it because they don't know much about it. So what happens is the enemy gets a hold of these people, like they did me, and gives them some gratification, some notoriety, some money, and then you fall into it, like I did, and I did for many years. And so finally, I woke up, got my head out of the sand, and realized that I had to use my talents for God, which is when I started doing Last Evangelist. So that's kind of it in a very nutshell, very quick answer.
I think that's a very good explanation. One of my frustrations, you've heard me say this, I'm sure before, but much of the church has this veneer, shall we say, of perfection. A lot of the entertainment has that veneer of perfection, and I think that people can't relate to it because many of us come from dysfunctional homes. Many of us have to be out in the world for our career, and what we encounter on a daily basis, church or otherwise, is not what we're seeing in the church entertainment. But if you'll talk to a pastor, some of the number one things that they have to counsel people for is sexually related things, pornography, adultery, just lots of different things. So that's one of the pushbacks I get from my series is because I don't want perfect, polished characters. I want people that mess up because how can you show for repentance if they don't need any, right? And I try not
Right.
to get too bad in the weeds, but I want a veneer of reality. They're fighting the enemy. The enemy is not pretty. And some of the
Yeah.
pushback I really get from is the excuse me, the chapters where I write from the enemy perspective, which I don't often, but if you're fighting this enemy, you got to hear from them every once in a while. But David, one of the questions that I like to ask people when I'm in a face-to-face teaching period with someone with a class is, "Are you bouillon or tofu?" And I always get this blank look on their face. So I'm going to ask you that, and then I'm going to explain to you because I think that what you've described, I think you're probably bouillon. But what I tell them is that tofu, you put it in food and it's bland. It's completely
Yeah.
nothing, but it soaks up everything around it and becomes that. Bouillon, it disperses throughout the water or whatever you put in it, and it affects the dish that way. So I know that
Right.
you went into Hollywood. It affected you a little bit, so you got a little tofu there. But then you turned
Right.
around and you're affecting Hollywood, you're affecting the entertainment industry. I personally have been in a meeting that you conducted with you pulled together all kinds of people that's in the entertainment in the media series with the express purpose for them going out and doing the sort of thing that you are using their talent for the Lord. So, what would you say overall, predominantly? Are you tofu or bouillon in what you do?
Well, first of all, I'm a vegetarian, so I'm not quite sure that's a fair question. But in the spirit, in the physical, I'm tofu because I'm vegetarian. But in the spiritual, I'd say I'm bouillon. Even more than that, I'm probably a piece of meat on bone that's been boiled in water for 4 to 5 days. Meaning that when you drop me into something, I'm going to affect. I call it a divine disruption.
Oh, I love that.
I I I affect and defect what's around me when it comes to the spiritual darkness. So yeah, I preached this morning on you're not separated, you're set apart. You're not lonely. You're anointed and appointed for God. And so part of this is I'm a divine I'm a divine uh, I guess you could also say distraction. When I walk into a room, I tell people if there's demons in the room, this isn't about me, Rena. I'm nothing. But I've learned that the greater is the power in me than he who's in the world. So when I walk into a room in Hollywood, I can see the demons tremble. They stutter. They're paralyzed. So I would consider myself a divine disruptor.
I had a great Bible teacher early on that opened doors for me and taught me, and he one of the things he taught me is that when a true Christian enters the arena, the power shifts immediately. But most people
Mhm.
don't understand that in the church or otherwise. So,
No.
I know that
Yeah.
you when you walk on the stage, when you walk in the room, I've seen that happen over and over again, but how hard is it in the darkest place in our country or one of them, and maybe I'm overreaching there, but how hard is it to go in and change that industry, from what it is to what you would like to see it to do?
You're talking about Hollywood
Yes.
specifically? Yeah. Well, that's a really good question. First of all, I can't change anything, nor do I believe God will use me to change anything. But let me qualify that, what I really mean. And it's funny because I preached on this morning. A lot of us, myself included, for years would be on the outside looking in and seeing people in a restaurant and they'd be eating and having a good time. Or, we look through a glass and we see people that have things we don't have and we wish that we had that or whatever. Even churches, even, in the religious world. But God showed me to stop looking through the glass and looking at other people. And right where I am is holy and anointed. Where I stand is the holy ground. Start building from where I'm standing right now and stop wishing that I could go through that glass and change somebody or, somehow win somebody's soul or whatever you want to call it. That if I build and be what I am right where I am and let God use me, they will come to me. So here's my thing. I don't go into Hollywood to change anything. What I do is I go into Hollywood with God, and the ones that God calls will call out of that system into God's new system, Hollywood. And and so therefore you're not really changing Hollywood. What you're doing is you're collapsing it. Okay. Hollywood, I don't think can ever be changed. I think it can only be collapsed and taken out, taken down at the knees. That's my answer.
That's a very good answer, and one of the things that I have encountered, I've taught the Bible since I was 16 years old. Um, until I moved to
Wow.
Texas, it was weekly from the time I was 16 years old, and then extra biblical classes in the evenings and on weekends sometimes. Zoom has really changed that. Now I can reach a whole lot more people and not have to gather them in one room, and I really like that. But one of the things that I have encountered through the years, I used to have a really good friend that he was our pastor, and he and I spent quite a bit of time. We did nursing home ministry, we tag team taught, we did all kinds of stuff. We all went to the lake for the weekend. Then one of us preached, but the other people would always kind of roll their eyes and say, that's just your calling. Because we're always challenging them to find their ministry, to step up, to study like we did, and it's all. So we would talk about it. We talked it probably for 2 years once, and we arrived at, God's called us all to do that. It's just we're the ones that's being the Bereans, and that might seem a little bit arrogant, but biblically, I think that's accurate. But what one of the things that we encountered over and over and over, and I still encounter, is they'll look at a David Heavener and your success. They'll look at a Russ Dizdar. They'll look at a Carl Gallups, or, fill in the blank. Um, and they compare who they are right this minute to that person. And even in the Bible, we get maybe this much sometimes, and encompasses somebody's whole life. But we pick
Hmm.
out that, Deborah led an army. I can't lead an army, so I can't do anything, right? But I one of the things I try to do is I wanna go in, I wanna study. I love the Book of Jasher, it opens up so much more, but I wanna know who these people were every day. They affected so many, they still affect us, but who were they on an everyday basis? Because they were us. So
Hmm.
what I would like to see people do is pick up the reins. We all have a talent, we all have a skill, we all have something. There's that secret thing in you that you think, "Man, I wish." Someone will come on there like a David Heavener, and they'll talk about their endeavors, they'll talk about their successes, they'll talk about winning 33 awards, and it's like there's that secret longing, but the fear, the intimidation, the belief that they're not that person stops them. So what would you say to that person that's in that place right now? They're having that hidden longing, shall we say, that they suppress every time. And they don't do the one, what go back to the book of the story of the talents. Had one talent and he hid it and lost it. Another guy had three talents and he used it and it became six. The other guy had five and it became 10, and then he had 11 because he got the first guys. How do they go from being offered one talent that they don't use to now having 11?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you do not want to be like me, okay? And I even before Russ Dizdar went to be at the Lord, we agreed with one another. I said, Russ, sometimes people look up to you, and and he says, yeah, I know. He says, and they look up to you, and I said, yeah, I know. I said, but we don't want anyone to be like us because what we've gone through, we wouldn't wish upon anybody, right? So everyone has a very specific blueprint in God's kingdom. Okay, you're a blueprint. You're a thumbprint. There's no one like you. Your gift, your talent, is your gift from God. What you do with it is your gift back to God. Your talent, your gift, your abilities are so specific and so personalized to each and every person, you exactly, that no one else can use it. Just like David was given that armor from Saul to say, well, you're going to need this little kid if you're going to go fight that big, Philistine. So he tried to walk around in Saul's armor and kind of fell over and took it off. Said, I can't use this. This is not. See, with our assignment, we're also given a weapon, a very specific weapon. Here's what happens: you get people that don't understand their assignment, they don't understand their weapon, their abilities, so they want to imitate somebody else that they
Mm.
look up to, and I tell people there are many preachers in the pulpit that should be janitors and many janitors that should be in the pulpit. Okay, it's just the way it is. What happened is they kind of got circumvented at some point for whatever reason, believing that they just can't do it on their own. So they have to imitate someone. They've got to go down the same road somebody else goes down. Don't go down any road anyone else has gone down. Go down the road God assigns you. Okay. And don't, it's okay to look at somebody and look at their life and go, okay, well, I'd like to model kind of after the essence of who they are. I'm not saying that's bad, but you cannot duplicate somebody else's life. That's somebody else's gift God has given them, very specifically.
Very good answer. I want to break for just a moment and talk about my sponsors, and then I want to address that just a little bit. Well, this is not going to play for me, so I'm just going to tell you. I have a general lines license in life, health, and annuities, and I have a website called Rena, thatinsurancechick.com. I do life, it includes term, whole life, universal. I do some infinite banking policies. We have children's final expense, adult final expense. I do some college planning, retirement planning. I offer dental, vision, critical illness, disability, annuities, fixed index annuities, which is a great way to grow cash. I do mortgage protection. I do some Medicare supplements. I do quite a few rollovers. And the number one thing in America that causes death up to age 61 is accidental death. I live in East Texas, and the numbers here are like 70% higher than the rest of the nation. Accidental death policies are incredibly inexpensive, and everybody needs one. I had a cousin, his wife, and son and grandson all pass away in one car accident, and I'm telling you, financially and emotionally, that will bury a family. Please contact me at askrinalynn@yahoo.com, and I'll get you a free quote. Also, a friend of mine
within the
is
next
a
6 months.
veteran. Let
Go
me
to
do
Rena
this one will play, so let me start it.
Folks, you want to help Total Freedom Radio stay on the air? Please help support our sponsors. We have Simply Clean Foods. Primary focus is to bring clean food to people all around the world and change the way we look at freeze-dried food in our daily cooking. As a community-focused company, they strive to help our veterans through food donations and provide food to victims of natural disasters. They're dedicated to providing the best quality food you can buy next to fresh from a farmer's market. Their stringent quality controls and absolute zero GMO policy in testing for heavy metals make them unique in the storable foods market. They say just because our food is freeze dried doesn't make it just for emergencies. Our line of fruits, vegetables, and meats are suitable for everyday use, and you won't have to worry about throwing away food that you don't use. Just take out the amount you need and reseal the package for use within the next 6 months. Go to renalyn.com to the affiliates page and please click in from there, and it'll take you straight to my page, and it'll kick back just a little bit to us to help us with our cost. Thank you so much for supporting our sponsors.
All right, David, I loved your answer that no one needs to try to be us because we have a unique calling and a unique makeup. But there's one thing I would like to address about that. You made the statement, I think more than once, that I don't want them to be like me. Now, they can't have your ministry. They're not you. But I will say that you do set a pattern. You set a pattern of coming in to an area or an industry or anywhere in our lives where you're up against a wall that is very difficult to conquer, and yet you did. You came in, you conquered, you made a difference. Now you're, pardon the term, kicking butt for the enemy, for the against the enemy. And I think that's a great pattern to follow. I think Russ Dizdar did the same thing. I think we are intimidated again because we see the greats. But the pattern in the Bible, God called Gideon. He called Moses. He couldn't speak straight. He called those that the world would look at and go, "Who are they?" But those are the ones that he very much used. So I literally love the fact that you are a pattern setter, you are a trailblazer, and people that have not owned their talent, just, don't try to be somebody else, but reach out and own it. That's what I told you earlier. God, one of the things God's been dealing with me on lately is own your talent, own your skills, get everybody else out of the way between me and you, and do what I've called you to do. So what do you think in today's end times? We all know we're right there on that cusp of revelation. What ministries, what skills do you particularly see that is needed right now that maybe someone out there listening might have, but they're afraid to use?
Okay, well, the answer to that is for sure that everyone out there listening, no matter what your skill is going to be used by God. We are a body. We are different parts of the body, but we function together as one body. So with the part missing out of the body, we don't function properly. Okay, just like God called me to do Last Evangelist, which I have, but He also called me to start davidheavener.tv, a platform that's going to air Last Evangelist. Now, did I want to do that? No. But did I know how to do it? Yes, because God showed me how to distribute movies in Hollywood. Okay. Is it easy? No. I wouldn't want to wish that upon anybody except me because I've been given the assignment. So, one thing I'll tell you is do not ever expect to get an assignment where you're not going to have a lot of risk. And I'm talking 99% risk and 1% chance of succeeding. If you're given anything different than that, it's not an assignment. It's just something else you're doing in life. God's assignment in the physical will always come with 99% risk and 1% chance of it succeeding. Why? Because God likes to be God and he wants you to understand that he's a God of miracles and that 1% is the miracle. That's where the miracle
Amen.
operates.
Jonathan Kahn talks about. He says if you're not praying an impossible prayer, you're really not even praying yet. If it's impossible to you, but God is the God of the impossible, and He's really challenged me in His writing to create my impossible prayer list. And I'm the kind of person I had to pray over the list before I would even make it because it's impossible, right? But one
Mhm.
of the things that
Yeah.
I have seen too is I'm like you. I don't if you don't have that pushback, it's probably not your calling. But, I was offered this radio platform, and that was never something I would have ever gone to, never looked for, never thought about doing, and said no for 6 months. And then that thumb got in my back, of the story of the talents. I kept running on it. I kept praying. God kept saying, about missed opportunities. And it's really helped me be a connector of other people already in 6 months. And but I'm telling you, the pushback, the exhaustion, it's pushed back my book series, it's pushed back getting things published. It's like I'm one person. Um, but I think everybody has that talent and skill. Everybody has that calling. You got to find it. And sometimes if you're not looking for it, God will stick it in your lap. And he will badger you till you do it. And then it's like, God, why did you do this to me? So I'm really excited to know people that are on the front line, that are picking up the sword and fighting the battle. And we are down to the last 4 minutes. So, David, take us out and tell everybody whatever you think we need to know right now at this point.
Okay. Well, I'll just recap. You guys, I'm doing a TV series, CSI Meets the Book of Revelation. I play a cop. I bust underground churches for not registering with the government until I go blind, hear God's voice, and I see things in the spirit. It's called Last Evangelist. You can watch episode 1 and 2 on davidheavener.tv. It also comes through Roku and Amazon, Apple TV apps. And episode 2 deals with the insertion, which is a precursor to Mark of the Beast. Episode 3 comes out next week, 15th of November, deals with the AI Bible. And episode 4 comes out January 2nd, deals with missing children. What's really happening? What's really behind missing children? So if you can support me, go sign up to davidheavener.tv. It's not expensive. And you can go donate to the series by going to lastevangelist.com, and you can help us that way. We also have the film festival, which this may not air in time, but you can catch it as a download. Go to lastevangelistfestival.com, or you can go to David Heavener TV, and there'll be a film festival channel on there. You can watch it.
And if you're not familiar, again, here is, let me put it in the right place. Here is episode 1 of The Last Evangelist. And here is episode 2, and they're extremely interesting watch. It really, it's thought provoking too, David, to ask yourself, what would I do in that situation? What would I
Mm,
do if we get to that time? Because there's some controversy in the church now about a pre-trib rapture or rapture at all or not. So
yeah.
we don't know sometimes if we're going to be here or not. So ask yourself as you watch these, what would I do in that situation? And David, I send links to your work all the time to people because I believe in it. I believe in what you're doing. Again, I send prayer requests to your prayer team because I believe in your team and what you're doing, and I'm just so grateful. I want to just thank you on behalf of my entire listening audience for what you do, for what Shanita does, for the time and effort that you put toward the Kingdom War, and I'm just excited.
Thank you, Rena. I appreciate it. And if anybody wants to get in touch with me, you can call 844-806-0006. That's our prayer line. If you'd like to donate, davidheavener.tv/give or /order if you want to order a product. Rena, thank you for being such a warrior, and thank you for giving me the time to be on your show today.
David, I am just so excited to be joined with other warriors in the Kingdom War, and you guys get on David's platform, donate, offer what you can for this war against the enemy, and offer yourself to the Lord. Put yourself on your face and ask Him what your gifting is and what your time in this last days is to do for the kingdom. And send this shows, The Last Evangelist, send the episodes to people for Christmas gifts, for birthday gifts, what, or just because it's definitely a great endeavor. And David, thank you. And this is it for Total Freedom Radio for this week. And we'll have you back again down the road.
Thank you, Rena. God bless.